Namaskar. We were talking about Anurat in the last lecture. There are 5 Anurats, and we talked about Ahimsa Anurat in the last lecture, and we shall talk about the rest of the 4 today. The second Anurat is Satya Anurat. Satya means truth. Satya means speaking what is commendable and not false. So there are 2 conditions attached with the Satya. Number 1, it is not false, it is true. And second, it is commendable. This is also important, that your whatever truth you speak is commendable and does not unnecessarily harm others, A speech that causes unnecessary pain and suffering to a living being is not commendable. For example, you can understand that, by speaking truth, if some innocent person is being killed, for example, then that truth is not good. You then don't speak, keep quiet. Of course, don't tell lie, but don't speak, So because that is not commendable, it is going to harm somebody. Falsehood is making wrong statements, so you should not make wrong statements. Falsehood is of 4 kinds. Number 1, denying the existence of a thing that actually exists. A thing is existing and you say, no, it doesn't exist. For example, there is a temple outside your towns, let's say a Shiv temple, and say, no, there is no Shiv temple. That's a lie. Assertion of existence of a thing that does not exist. Suppose there is no temple outside your town and you say, no, there is a temple. You are telling a lie. A thing is represented to be something different from what actually it is. So there is a Shiv temple outside your town and you say, no, it's a Vishnu temple. That's wrong, You should not speak something like that. And when a speech is ordinarily condemnable, should not sinful and disgraceful. I gave you example that, in such cases where it is going to harm somebody and going to cause suffering to someone, unnecessary suffering, you should not speak, because that is not condemnable, but that is not commendable, A speech actuated by patience is false. This is a normal thing, We are overpowered by anger or ego or deceitfulness or greed, This happens in our life very often. In such circumstances, when you speak, you are likely to speak false, You are likely to speak untruth because you are not, your own self in such conditions. You are overpowered by emotions and patience. For instance, examples are backbiting, harsh words, unbecoming, unethical speech, speech provoking others to engage in violence and so on. This happens many times. You must have seen, there are people who are unnecessarily provoking others to indulge in violence, That's wrong, that's a false thing. So that kind of speech is false. Falsehood involves hinsa of some kind or other. This is the hinsa we defined, last time. Whether you are hurting your own self or hurting others, In both cases, you commit hinsa. So when you are speaking untruth, or false things, then your first thing is you are hurting yourself, You are not speaking truth. So your soul is by nature honest, So you are going against the very nature of the soul and telling lie or false things. So you are causing hinsa to yourself, and you bind karma in such cases. Or a truthful person should give up patience. Well, that's very important. If you want to be a person who always speaks truth, then you should control your patience. As I told you earlier, that if there are patience, you are likely to speak untruth. So better control patience, you anger, ego, and so on, greed, and so on. So these things are real enemies. Then cowardice, fearlessness, you should not be a coward person, you should be able to have a courage to speak the truth. Then blaming words, divulging of secrets, that is also a false thing, you should avoid that. You should not open out the secrets. If you have of somebody, keep it to you and don't make it public. Backbiting, forgery, producing a false kind of evidence, of course, is against law also, and you are likely to be punished. Exaggeration of things, you speak only what actually the thing is, and don't try to exaggerate it and expand it and things which do not exist. Fault finding with others, this is, many people have this kind of habit. They find faults with others, and that of course is not good for you and not for the society. Boasting, you boast yourself, you boast yourself to be a big person or honest person or a great person or something like this, So self-praise, boasting is not good. Jealousy about merit of others, Yes, there are good meritorious people around you and you feel jealous of them. No, you should not do that. You should not be jealous of. You should rather admire their virtues, admire their qualities, if there are such people around you. And should not speak any kind of indecent words, That's not a good, it's not a gentlemanly behavior, There are 5 transgressions of truth. Jainism, as I told you earlier, when it describes or when it promotes Anuvrat, the Anuvrat defines 2 things, what to do and what not to do. Both positive and negative aspects are described here. So transgressions, something which is a negative kind of thing, Giving false or wrong advice. If you are asked for an advice, you should give the right advice, or you don't give. Not giving false advice is a violation of the law of truth. Then misleading people in matters of belief and conduct. Don't mislead people. Let the people have their own belief, and let them act according to their own belief. Don't misguide them or mislead them. Look here, your faith is not good, your belief is not good. This is not correct. So you must refrain yourself from misleading the people. Divulging the secrets of others is a bad habit, For example, I am just taking an example. A medical doctor, he knows everything about his patients, but he doesn't talk about them to other people, because that is his ethics, of course. But this is just an example, and the similar things we must also follow in our life. Breaking the promise of secrets, Somebody tells you that, look, I tell you something, but don't tell others, and then you tell others. This is not good, If somebody has asked you to keep a secret, you keep a secret of it, and don't divulge that to other people. Disclosure of confidential talks. Many times it also happens in our life that we have confidential talks with other people, maybe our friends or maybe our own family members, or maybe in your profession, there are confidential talks maybe between you and your boss. So you don't divulge those things to others. Your boss will not expect that whatever he has talked to you, you disclose to others. This is not good. Slandering others, of course, you know that, or talking about the weaknesses of other people. Might be that you know the weaknesses of your friends, or your family members, or some other people. Keep them up to you. If there are good things you know about other people, of course you tell others, he is such and such good people, he has such and such good habit and so on. But if you know something weakness, something bad in that person, please don't disclose that. Keep it to you. This is not good. Then committing perjury or forgery. Of course, forging is a great offense, and you are likely to be punished by state. This includes keeping false accounts. This happens in business many times, that they keep two kinds of accounts. One good number, one which is for personal, for themselves, another for the government purpose. This is not good. This is a breach of law or breach of vow, So then carrying on false propaganda about others, you should not do that. Many times this happens, in election time you must have seen people indulge in false propaganda about the opponents, and this of course is definitely bad. Committing breach of trust or misappropriation of what is entrusted to you in confidence. So if somebody trusts you, and suppose I trust you and I'm going out for some reason and I hand over my things to you, please keep them in your custody till I come back. So I have given you those things because I trust you. And when I come back and I ask for things, no, you didn't give me anything. So that's not correct, So you must protect the trust people have in you, and you must tend to that, and you must prove that you are trustworthy. Asatya or falsehood is also hinsa, as I told you. Whenever you speak untruth or false things, you are committing hinsa and you bind karma. It brings endless misery in your life, in this present life, and also in the next life, So please avoid false speaking. The third anurat is achorya anurat. Achorya anurat means, what is achorya? Stealing. Stealing is chori. Stealing is taking what is not given. A very simple definition. Anything which is not given is not yours, don't take it. Maybe that thing is lying underground, but that is not yours. Or something somebody has dropped, suppose somebody has dropped his wallet, it's not yours. You must try to return it to the owner. So this is a very broad definition of stealing or not stealing. Somebody has forgotten something, he comes to your room and he has forgotten something, you must go and return that to the owner. Theft is hinsa, if you are stealing, you are committing theft, you are committing hinsa. It is aroused by patience. The why persons steal? Because of greed, because of anger, or because of ego, and something like this. So because of patience, you commit theft, and that is a hinsa, and is liable to punishment. Of course, this is a great punishment for thieves. There are 5 transgressions of theft. Not committing theft personally, but instigating others to do so. You don't do it, you want to have something, so you don't steal it, but ask somebody, go and get it for me. This is one and the same thing, So don't instigate others to steal. Receiving stolen goods and property. All thieves, what they do, whatever they steal, they go and sell these items in the market, So the person who is receiving those markets or buying those items, is also equally guilty. So don't receive stolen goods or property. Underhand dealings, for getting a thing in contravention of rules of the state, Suppose, liquor is prohibited in your state. So, okay, it's prohibited means there is no dealing. But then you import liquor through illegal means and sell it. Well, you are committing a theft and an offense. Adulteration of any kind, of mixing things, wrong things with the right ones, So the mixing, is find very common in food items, in medicines, and so many other things, So adulteration of any kind is stealing. Using false weights and measures. Suppose there is a shopkeeper and his measures are not verified, or they are not standardized, or they have not been checked by the proper authority, and he gives you less than the correct weight, So things like this. So using false weights and measure is stealing. Then we come to the 4th anurat, known as a brahmacharya anurat. A person must confine to sexual contact with his, her or her spouse, So what is permitted in anurat is that you can have contact with your own spouse and nobody else, So this is it must be very strictly followed. Illicit contact with another person or any other gender, is a breach of vow. You should not establish such contacts with any other kind of people. This sexual kind of activity may disturb the calm of your soul, Your soul is disturbed, your mind is disturbed, and it does a lot of harm to you. So avoid these things. There are 5 transgressions of brahmacharya anurat. Number 1, a householder should refrain from arranging marriage of children of other individuals. Of course, this is a practice followed in Jain tradition. It's not followed in other tradition as far as I know. And this is because, having marriage also involves some kind of hinsa, and therefore they refrain from it, and they don't involve themselves in arranging marriage of children of other people. Of course, marriage of their own children has to be arranged. Touching the sensitive parts of female with bad intention. So you should be very careful in dealing with opposite sex particularly, and see that you please ensure that you don't touch them with bad intentions. Enjoying sensual activities of other persons, maybe on screen, TV, mobile, phone, computer, etc. This is a big problem nowadays, We all watch TV, we'll see films on mobile, we see films on computer and so on. And in such cases, there may be some scenes, which involve violence, or which involve intimate contacts, or which may involve some kind of objectionable things, So what is required here is that you don't involve yourself with such things, You don't have a feeling of what is you are watching, You just watch in an impartial manner, just observe things without reacting, without yourself involving in those kinds of activities or having a thoughts and feeling of what is you are seeing on the screen. So your observations or your watch must be impartial. You just observe things and don't react with your feelings and emotions. Then if you do that, you might commit a breach of brahmacharya, anuvrat. Excessive inclination for enjoyment of sensual pleasure. Sensual pleasures includes all kinds of pleasure with senses. So it's not only sexual activity, it's different. It's taken in a very broad way. So you should not have inclination of excess of these things. Of course, you do enjoy things, but the excess of everything is bad. And frequently visiting persons and places exhibiting or depicting sensual activities. Don't go to such places where such things are displayed or depicted, because then you might get a feeling, those particular feelings in yourself, and you are then going against the vow of brahmacharya. Breach of this vow leads to commission of various kinds of sins. Those who are engaged in these activities, they many times commit sins against the self as well as against the society. You are doing sin against yourself because you are involving with patience, yourself. But not only that, you might probably hurt somebody else also in order that you enjoy those things. A person involved in adultery engage in various kinds of deceitful acts. So a person who is really engaged in this kind of activity, he then involves in deceitful activities, and he involves with maybe with anger and so on, which are all bad. Then the fifth anuvrat is aparigraha anuvrat. This is also very important. What is parigraha? Is possession and infatuate attachment to possession. There are two things. You possess wealth, you possess items of your enjoyment, your comforts and so on. This is one thing. But having attachment with these objects is another thing. Whatever you possess, please don't have attachment to those things. You must remain in a detached condition. Of course, you use those items, but not with attachment. So you should not have attachment with your wealth or your property and the other facilities which you have with you. So you enjoy the facilities in a limited way without attachment. Possession causes passions of greed and delusion and evil of mind. So you become greedy. There are people who go on accumulating wealth, go on accumulating items after items, and probably never use it. This is a mad way of doing things. So this kind of possession creates many problems in your mind, and with you. The desire becomes uncontrollable many times, and it becomes a vice. As I said, if the person who are accumulating wealth, they become habitual, kind of addict to go on accumulating wealth, and probably without any purpose, So this is a big problem with many people, and this then causes violence, because you have to protect whatever you accumulated, whatever you have to protect them, and then in that process you might engage with others in a violent way. To be free from such a desire, one should voluntarily decide limit on wealth, and property. This everyone must do. Put limits. Okay, this much money is enough for me. this much property is enough for me, and you don't have to exert yourself, accumulating beyond that limit, and unnecessary involves hinsa. Consumerism, there is a modern word is a consumerism. So consumerism means, you enjoy, you buy more and more items, enjoy more and more items, and have more and more facilities, comforts in your house. And therefore this leads to consumerism, and consumerism leads to many problems in the world. As I said, you must voluntarily decide the limits, what you should possess regarding wealth and property. This is known as Ichha Parinam Vrat. So voluntarily you put limit on all those things. The parigraha is both external and internal. External means the various kinds of things which we have just talked. There are also what is known as internal parigraha, which is inside you. Things like anger, ego, pride, deceitfulness, greed, they are all your internal parigraha. So they are the main parigraha, in fact, and because of these things you have external parigraha. So internal parigraha is, in fact, is the main parigraha. A person who is free of these parigraha will not collect things, will not accumulate wealth. And besides these four, there are 8 others, You remember we also discussed quasi-patience in the last lectures. Things like like, dislike, and so on, fear, laughter, and so on. So these are also things which are considered as an internal parigraha, and they also cause you to have external parigraha and so on. So I talked to you about this aparigraha vrat, and if you observe these 5 anuvratas in your life, you will be a very, very happy person, and you will not only that, you will be a very useful person to the society. Thank you.